Welcome to the Business and Bubbly podcast. This is the place for women in business who are on the journey of building their big ideas and want to have fun along the way. It's for those of us who also know we aren't meant to do business or life alone. Hi, I'm Charity Majors, your host and the founder of Business and Bubbly. Think of this kind of like the can I pick your brain chats that you've always wanted to have with those who are doing epic things, plus business besties, hype girls, and getting into massive action towards your next big idea all in the same place. Oh, and bubbles, because if you're not having fun along the way, you're not doing it right. Together, we'll unlock what it means to be seen, known, heard, and championed all along the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and being a woman in business building big dreams. Each week, I'll bring you a quick sip business tip, as well as interviews from top experts that make you feel like you're getting bottle service for your business. We're having the raw and real conversations and chatting about all the things, the messy middle, the pivots, scaling, the good days and the bad days, because here we do real. It's where we can work hard, play hard, cry it out, and dance it out all at the same time without being judged. This is a place where we are in the arena together and we are each other's biggest fans because most of us have enough comments from the cheap seats. It's where our too much is par for the course and where the gaps of our not enough are filled in by the other epic women that are around us. It's where we can be unapologetic about the mission we are on, about the big dreams on our heart, and the business we are building without having to be perfect or have it all together, or even pretend to. It's a supportive community where business is being done amongst like-minded women, because when money gets in the hands of good women, great things happen. It's a place where you have the support around you to get out of your comfort zone and go after your big ideas, because even when you fail forward or when you reach the top, you know it won't be alone. Also, if you know anything about me, you'll know that I'm obsessed with creating platforms that lift up other women to be seen and heard and known. So with that in mind, I'd like to invite you to list your business on our directory called Find Women in Business. All you've got to do is text the word directory to 833-231-8098, and I'll text you the link back to get your free listing. This is also a great way to connect with other women in business from around the world, so definitely check it out. And now let's get to the good stuff. Grab a glass of your favorite beverage, Prosecco, bubbly water, or whatever your flavor is, and let's dive in. Are you with me? Here we go. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Charity Majors, and today's guest is going to teach you all about how the less you work, the more you make. Jarrod Haning is the guest today on the Meant for More podcast. He is an award-winning speaker. He's been featured on ABC Nightline, spoke on stages all across the country, has clients all across the world, has delivered 4 TEDx talks related to mindset performance, and been chosen by TED Global as the featured speaker of the week. He specializes in a Nobel-nominated process that teaches you how to think at a higher level and allows you to access different parts of your brain on demand. As a result of this training, most of his clients go on to double their income by purposefully working half as many hours. Now, you are going to love this conversation that Jarrod and I have. We talk about how he not only started with his Meant for More moment of moving from like being deathly afraid of stage fright and performing to, like you heard, speaking all over the world. I mean, what it looks like to really access different parts of your brain and how that can show up in your life. So definitely grab a pen and paper. You are going to love this rich episode that is full of lots of really great nuggets. And as always, thank you again for being here on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. I am super excited for today's guest. As always, thank you again for being here on the show, for letting us kind of be in your ears with you on your day. And Jarrod, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise. I'm super excited for our conversation today.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be a good call.
It is. So take us back to your meant for more moment, that moment where it was like, okay, like what I'm doing is not working. Something has to change. Something has to shift. I don't know what it is. I'm ready to take massive, crazy, imperfect action, but something has to change. Take us to that meant for more moment, what you were experiencing, what you were thinking, and what you did.
Yes. I have the perfect story for you. In a previous iteration of myself, so 10 years ago, I ended a 20-year career as full-time classical music. I was the principal viola with the South Carolina Philharmonic, and I ended that 10 years ago to step into what I'm doing now, which is kind of the meant for more moment. But let's talk about crossing that bridge. When I was in classical music, I I had crazy, ridiculously debilitating stage fright. As anybody who's experienced that would describe it, the same way. It's this miserable experience where, I mean, your eyes turn gray and your brain locks up and your body doesn't work. And I mean, audio, vision, I mean, everything. It's like you're out of your mind, and it's very frustrating. It's very, very, very discouraging, very frustrating, because you'll invest 6 months of practicing 5 hours a day to prepare for this one moment, and the moment comes, and it's like you're having this weird out of body experience, and it's just discouraging. Just makes you want to quit. So for 20 years, I was going through that, and I would just want to sell my instrument. I would want to get out of it. I couldn't handle it anymore. But I had the mental illness that we call being a musician, where I couldn't not do it. I couldn't put it down. So for those of you listening with us, I don't know if you can relate to a thing in your life that you both loved, but it was also destroying you. It was just ruining your life, but you also loved it, and there was so much good in it. And you're just caught in this either or scenario where, like, either I walk away or I just keep letting it, but it's not working. Neither one of those scenarios are workable. And that's where I was at. And it was miserable. Well, back up a couple years. I had started speaking at events and conferences and teaching people how to access different parts of their brain on demand. So this was kind of like leadership training and productivity training. And it dawned on me, what if I just practice what I preach? Like, what if I apply the techniques I know work in other fields? What if I applied those techniques to stage fright? Now, if you've ever had any kind of anxiety or stage fright, then you know plenty well that the advice you get, well-meaning as it is, it doesn't make a hill of beans difference. And in many cases, it actually makes things worse. Just eat a banana before you go on stage. Imagine the audience in your underwear. Don't worry, just do your best. Like, it all just makes things worse. So I knew it worked. I had just never actually tried it on stage fright. So here I am. I'm on stage, and the solo's coming up. I can hear the orchestra playing away, and I've got like 30 seconds to decide, am I actually going to try this? I was like, okay, fine. I've got nothing to lose. I've tried everything else. It doesn't work. So here we go. And here's what it is. What it is that your problem, and hear me out, because this is going to sound really callous at first. Your problem is really only there because you don't have a bigger problem. The only reason you are struggling with the finances or productivity or your health or your relationships or whatever's going on, the only reason that is currently showing up as a problem, I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the only reason it shows up as a problem, as opposed to, say, an opportunity, or as opposed to, say, completely going unnoticed, the only reason is because you aren't up to something bigger. There isn't something, otherwise it would just be small potatoes. So here I am about to play this solo. And at that time, I was about the business of getting it right, like playing all the notes right, looking good, making good use of all the preparation. And I want to say that that's small potatoes. Like, so what? Who cares? I could play the best solo the world's ever heard. And tomorrow morning doesn't make a hill of beans difference. So I had to look at the music and ask myself a different question. In order to get rid of the anxiety, the stage fright that was controlling my life, I had to step up to a bigger problem. My friends, I've had friends that are struggle with their weight and diet and exercise, and they're on the wagon, off the wagon, on the wagon, off the wagon. And that's because their health is the problem, right? And until you get a bigger problem, that's always going to be your problem. But I also have other friends who got tired of being on the wagon, off the wagon, and struggling with their weight. And so rather than diet or exercise, they took on a bigger problem. They said, in the next 9 months, I'm going to complete a full-length triathlon. Well, when that is your problem to solve, suddenly willpower and discipline are no longer issues because you're up to something bigger. How am I going to stay alive for this, right? So here I was on stage worrying about little things, getting the notes right, playing in tune, playing a good musical phrase. So I had to ask myself, what is more meaningful than this? Why do I even want to play this solo? Why do I even care that the audience hears it? What is a bigger problem that I could step up to? And it dawned on me that for me, that solo spoke to the felt experience of being loved. And so I said, all right, I am going to stand for the possibility that my audience would have the felt experience of being loved. Now, this was a completely different game. I had never done something like this. I'd never stepped up to a bigger problem like that. So I go to play with solo and I get ready to play the first note, right? And my brain does what it had always done. My brain goes, you might miss this note. And I had to say, I don't care. Like, I can completely not play the note at all. It doesn't matter to me because I'm no longer in that business. I am standing for what is possible in my audience's life, that they would have the felt experience of being loved. And then I go into the next note and my brain fires off again. Oh, this is a really difficult shift. You might miss the shift again. That's fine. I don't care. I am no longer playing that game. I am not in the business of getting the notes right and looking good. I am standing for something bigger, that my audience would have the felt experience of being loved. Note after note after note after note, I had to continually recommit myself to being about something bigger. It was exhausting. It took an awful lot of focus to maintain the most important thing. At the end of that solo, a couple things had happened. One of them was that as a byproduct, I had in fact played the best I had ever played under pressure. But that wasn't the victory. The victory was that I now knew experientially, you could never take it away from me. I knew what made the difference. And so as I left the stage that day, I couldn't wait to do it again for the first time ever. That's my origin story of what started to take me out of the world of full-time classical music and into the world where I am now a trainer at the Mindset Gym, rewiring other people so that they too can think at a higher level about solving those problems in their life.
I love that. Such a in-depth story of what it looks like to, and just that meant for more moment. Like, no, like I am not going to settle for this repeated pattern, which I love. But there's something in your story that is intriguing me right now. And it's this stage fright that you experienced as a musician, but you also said that a couple years before that, that you had started like speaking and teaching and training
Yes.
in front of others. So where was the stage fright in that? And what do you think the difference was between those two stages, and why did it only show up with you as a musician and not with you as a speaker?
I might need your help exploring that territory. And I'm open to doing
Mm.
that here. As a speaker, I have always felt at home. I have never felt more myself, more alive, more doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. than sharing a message from the stage. For whatever reason, that just seems to be how I'm wired. I understand other people aren't wired that way. And I don't think like that's a bad thing. I don't think you should beat yourself up for it. And if you are wired like I am, I don't think like you should celebrate it. I mean, it's not necessarily better. It's just different. Why? Also, and I've noticed that even with musicians inside the realm of music, I know people that are thrilled to sing for you a solo. They would love nothing more than to stand in front of the choir and belt their song and solo out. But if you ask them to play a piano solo, an instrument that they have actually greater mastery on and control over, they are a miserable puddle. They completely collapse. So there is this phenomenon that we can be terrified of something and not terrified of its cousin, and it's unexplainable as to why. I'm going to take a wild guess as to what could be going on there. And obviously this is human nature, which we are just weird. But what could be going on is some of the meaning that you attach to that experience. So for example, I know a lady who loves to sing, but hates to play solos. I love to speak, but I hated to play solos on my instrument. And some of that could be, for us, we feel a greater sense of control over our voice and our inflection and what we're sharing. We feel a greater sense of connection. But for the instrument, for whatever reason, it's possible that we feel more constriction and clumsiness and kind of ineptitude. We're missing that sense of mastery with the instrument, even though, like, obviously we're talking about people that have been playing for 20 years and have got masters and doctorate degrees, and like, for them to say they don't have mastery, it's like, what, are you crazy? But internally, I think that could be part of what's happening in the head.
Interesting. Well, I like what you said, because I think that it brings up like a really unique perspective of what you said, where it's like, oh, with music or with playing this instrument, it actually feels constricting, and where I know there's actually a lot of other people and musicians or whatever out there with the opposite of that, where it's like, when I actually play, like, so my husband, he plays guitar, and when he plays, he feels so free, and it's like it gives this space and this meaning for things that maybe he wouldn't be able to say, or it gives like kind of this sound to what he's might be feeling but isn't able to necessarily articulate. So I love what you said, just as another unique perspective.
If I could add to that, just
Yeah.
a small thing, because I know some of the podcasts and the conversation does get into entrepreneurial ventures. It is really easy to look at somebody else and think, oh man, if I could only be like them, and then feel like you have to do what they're doing to succeed. Maybe they market their business by speaking on stage, and so you beat yourself up because you're terrified of speaking on stage, or they market their business by running Facebook ads, and you beat yourself up because you just suck at putting words together that are in a compelling sentence. I think one of the points of my stage fright story is that there is quite likely something that you feel totally free at that is totally effective for growing your business.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep beating yourself up over this thing that you don't feel free at just because somebody else does it well.
Totally.
You don't have to.
Totally. And I love that what you said, that because that was going to be another point that I shared of what if, right? Like what you're saying, like this, when I just like speak, even if I'm on stage, like I feel alive and I feel amazing. And it just comes out and I love this. But then on this other stage, when I'm doing this other thing, it is like pulling teeth and pushing a boulder uphill, right? And I actually, like, to your agreement, actually think that it was like that we have those deeper intuitive spiritual signs that say, actually, this is the stage that you're meant for, and this is more of what you're meant for. And sure, it's like, it's hard because we could have put like a lot of time and energy into this one thing, right? A lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of probably investment. And now it's like, oh, but this is the thing. right? That actually makes me come alive instead of this thing that feels like I'm pulling teeth. So I love what you said, where it's like, okay, like give yourself permission to like, what if this was actually the thing that I'm meant for instead of this other thing?
Mhm.
So that was good. I want to go back into what you were saying with a problem is only there because you don't have a bigger problem. So, speaking of entrepreneurship, I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this. I'm obviously an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur. And so much of the entrepreneurial journey is this somewhat of this trial and error. This, okay, maybe I should try a webinar, maybe I should try Facebook ads, maybe I should try a live event, maybe I should try a podcast, maybe I should try YouTube, maybe I should try Instagram, maybe I should try, right? Like all the things. And I love what you said, where it's like, well, maybe if this person is experiencing success in this area, it's because they are, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you will or you won't. So let's chat a little bit about like the problems in the entrepreneurial world and what that can look like with how our brain operates. And even let's chat about your scan, because I did it, you guys, and it was awesome.
There's a great quote by Howard Thurman about this. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive.
Yep.
And this is the counter advice to what most marketers will tell you, which is find out what people want and sell it to them. But that keeps you in this performance world where you are more likely to encounter your inner demons of stage fright. Howard Thurman's advice: don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And of course, in our entrepreneurial journey, it's easy to get stuck wearing all the hats and think to yourself, well, I have to do this and this and this. And somebody comes alongside and says, well, why don't you delegate that? And you said, well, I would, but I don't have the time to train them because this has to be done right now. And that makes sense. That's very logical and rational. I mean, if you don't have the time, then delegating would just put you even further behind. That makes a lot of sense. Or you say, well, I don't have the money to hire them. So that's why I have to do the work until I have the money to hire them. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you can't afford them, how in the world are you going to do this? So we can see how these ways of thinking can keep us stuck. You know that you love this thing and you don't really enjoy this thing, but it makes sense that you don't have the money to hire them or the time to train them. So you're the one that has to do it. And so there you are, stuck in this situation that doesn't work, where you're on the wagon, off the wagon, on the wagon, off the wagon. It's not sustainable. And one of the reasons it's not sustainable is because it's small potatoes. As soon as you step up to something bigger, suddenly it all falls away. Charity, you had mentioned the mind scan. And so kind of teasing out a little bit there about the thinking patterns and the thinking patterns that either keep us stuck or set us free. By the way, you know that there is a thinking pattern in place, namely a blind spot in that thinking pattern. If you keep hitting the same obstacle, don't have enough time, don't have enough money, don't have the right leads, don't have enough leads, don't have the right support at home, whatever it is, it's not because you aren't trying hard. I mean, heck, you're already doing everything you can think to do. And it's not because you aren't doing things that aren't smart. I mean, if it didn't make sense, you wouldn't be doing it. But what that means is the breakthrough in that situation will at first seem like a bad idea, because if it made sense, you'd already be doing it. And that's the problem. We can't think of what doesn't make sense. We can't read the label from the inside of the bottle. And that's where the work that I do comes in with the mind scan, Nobel-nominated process that teaches you how to think at a higher level. And it starts by mapping out your current thinking patterns. That's where we see the blind spots that are tripping you up. That's where we see the breakthroughs that you could be leveraging differently. I've seen people in tears after going through the mind scan because they found it so personally meaningful and validating. Kind of like, oh my gosh, somebody else gets me. I'm not crazy. While at the same time empowering and encouraging because they have a clear map to get out of the weeds. But it does start with realizing that it might not be our circumstances that's keeping us stuck. It could be how our brain is thinking about them.
Love that. So why don't you chat about the scan and how it figures that out, and then what you can do to help people shift the way that they think. Which then you call them, you call them mind push-ups, right? Is that right?
Mindset push-ups. Yes.
Yeah.
Come to the Mindset Gym and we'll take you through some mindset push-ups.
Yes. And if you guys have listened to the show, you know, I'm a former personal trainer. So the mindset push-ups, I just love it.
The push-ups are important. You can't do somebody else's push-ups for them.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds silly, but it kind of gets to what it's like going to seminars or reading books and expecting change to happen. That would be like expecting somebody else to do those push-ups for you. It just doesn't work that way. Similarly, when you were learning to ride a bicycle and you're 5 years old, they take off the training wheels and you're really wobbly. You don't have it. And in that state, you're trying to figure it out, trying to make a go of it. And your crazy Aunt Jenny comes by with some advice. Crazy Aunt Jenny says, what you need to do is go faster. Because when you go faster, it's easier to balance. And you think to yourself, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. If I can't balance going slow, how's going fast? That's just going to make it worse. So one day, though, you did go faster and you felt something different in your body. You felt balance for the first time. And instantly your brain said, oh my gosh, now I understand what crazy Aunt Jenny was talking about. Notice that until your body felt the different sensation, no amount of information made a difference. After your body felt that sensation, no amount of information was needed. So when you come to the Mindset Gym, we don't tell you what to do. We don't give you advice. We don't give you life coaching. We put you on a little bicycle called a mindset push-up. And that experience is what rewires the way your brain solves problems. Of course, it starts with the mind scan that we use to map out your current thinking patterns so we can see those blind spots that have you frustrating on that hamster wheel. And you had asked about how that works. This is based on the Nobel-nominated work of Robert Hartman in the 1950s. And it has you sorting through things that you would consider to be morally good or morally bad. For example, what would you consider to be more good in the world, a technical improvement or a baby? Well, gosh, they're both good. But for you, one of them is slightly more good for reasons as unique as you are. And then if we say instead of having you sort 2 of them, have you sort 18 of them, it paints a picture. It's like a fingerprint of your thinking patterns. It's as unique as you are.
Interesting. So what got you into this? Because I want to kind of go back to this meant for more moment where you were a musician and now you're doing this thing.
Yeah. So I was full-time classical music. Yeah. For 20 years. And then 10 years ago, I was at a speaking event because at that time I was also speaking and sharing about how to access more of your brain on demand. And I was in line to get some food or something like that. And we were just talking about, what we spoke on and what we did. And the guy next to me, he goes, hey, have you ever heard of the mind scan? And at that time, I had not heard of the work of Robert Hartman. I hadn't heard of how they digitized it. I didn't know any of that. I was like, no. He goes, here, man, here's a link. Why don't you just take it on my tab? I was like, sure, absolutely. Holy moly. I mean, the mind scan, it was the missing link from the work I was doing. I was able to show you how to access different parts of your brain on demand. I was able to show you how to rewire it, but I didn't know how to show you how you were currently solving those problems. And so the mind scan kind of found me serendipitously. And then at that point, I kind of left the world of full-time classical music and stepped into the world of mindset trainer at the Mindset Gym.
I love it. So how is working on these mindset push-ups, how has it shifted things for you?
Okay. When I first got started, and this was 10 years ago, and obviously it does have a crazy effect on me because I'm going through the exercises with you. Like I'm right there, walking you through it. So constantly having to get reinforced and rewired myself. But one of the things that I was experiencing at that time 10 years ago is that I would have clients come to me and they'd be like, oh my gosh, you're the best. And man, you're the best. And we love you and you're the best. But they would never refer me to other clients. And that was really weird. Why are you going out of your way to say you thought I did a great job, but you don't refer me to other people that you think would enjoy this kind of work? What's going on? That's weird. Well, one of the things that came out of my mind scan at that time is that my brain was solving problems with a high emphasis on taking action and a low emphasis on how other people felt. And the thing is, people don't remember what you did for them, they remember how you made them feel. So, seeing that as an opportunity to think different about how I was solving things and to leverage different values, I began to solve the same problems I was through the lens of how the other person felt, as opposed to achieving the end result. And what happened then is I was building high value relationships. They were stacked with emotional bank deposits. And this caused them to go out and constantly refer me to other clients and other gigs and higher pay, even close the gig for me. I just had to show up, all because I learned to think different about achieving the same result.
That's awesome. So what does it typically look like? And we can, and you guys, I did the scan, which was super fun. So what does it look like when someone gets the results and what they are looking for? I know in the scan that we did, it was like like we had like this ideal little form and these fun circles and the colors and the sizes of the circles and what they meant. So talk a little bit about what someone can find out, and then ultimately the goal of what they would hope to get out of it when they are thinking differently.
Okay, so what is it like? What can they find out? What can they hope to do with that? Let's go through all those real quick. What is it like when you're actually taking the test itself? It feels unnatural, maybe, if I could say. The number one thing that people say after completing it is, did I take it right? Because it is unlike any other assessment that you've ever been around. And that's a good thing. The other assessments, because they're question based, your subconscious can game the system. And so you end up with results that aren't accurate or helpful. And this is only a measurement of you, the individual. So it's very accurate and very helpful. So that is just kind of heads up there. But then after that, then you have a chance to go through your thinking patterns, go through that graph with a mindset trainer. And that's an hour conversation. And there is a lot of value in there. Like, we just go deep in all different details, and how other people in similar situations have thought about solving those problems, how you could be thinking about solving it, what your life would look like if you did, and what challenges you might be and why you're facing those. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, man, it is a value-packed hour, pretty crazy. So we go through that, but what people can maybe expect to find in there is, if you're tired of hitting the same obstacles, don't have enough time, don't have enough money, don't have the right relationship support, can't get your staff to be proactive, if you're, self-employed or something like that, you will see very clear patterns in your thinking that are contributing to causing that. These are blind spots. And I know that sounds just like horrific, like the rudest thing I could possibly say, to suggest that the way you're thinking about your staff is the reason that they aren't showing up as productive or proactive. I know that just seems crazy, until you go through the thinking patterns and you notice the different values and the different ways that other people think about solving some of those problems. So that's one, is it opens up some of the blind spots. A blind spot, by the way, is a way of thinking that makes so much sense that it's impossible for the person who thinks that way to realize it's keeping them from the results that they want. It's a blind spot. It makes so much sense that they can't see it's a blind spot, right?
Yeah, I love that.
So we see a lot of those.
That's awesome. Well, and that was really fun for me to like even hear you say that when we had our session. Was it makes so much sense. Like, why wouldn't it work? Like, it's this blind spot thing, but it makes so much sense. So yeah, that was a really cool thing. It's a really cool thing to hear. So what's your favorite part about working with people in this space?
Okay. All right. So this is the love to hate it but ultimately more love than hate it favorite part. Because the work that we do is making shifts in the way you think, the end result is you feel like you have always been that way. It feels so natural. And so the favorite part is after a session in the Mindset Gym, asking you to pause every couple of days to write down what's missing in your life, what used to be there that isn't there anymore. Because if I don't make you stop and notice, you feel like you've always been this way. And so what happens is, at the beginning of each training session, we always ask, let me hear any wins or challenges for last week. So we'll do an exercise, right? Set of mindset push-ups. And then the next week rolls around for the next training session and any wins or challenges this week. And they'll invariably say something like, well, pretty normal week. I mean, let's see here. I fired my assistant. I hired 2 new ones. Yeah, I had that conversation with my spouse about vacation because I think we should be vacationing in a different spot. Rescheduled with the in-laws on when they're going to visit this year. Bought an office complex, and yeah, got back to working out. Yeah, pretty normal week. Nothing unusual. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Every single thing that you just mentioned, you've been avoiding like the plague for the past 5 years. And now you say it as if this is how you've always been. At which point they go, oh my gosh, yeah. Because when they were in that space, when they were showing up big like that, it felt so natural that it didn't stick out. It felt like, well, but I've always been this way. So my favorite part about working in the Mindset Gym is that space between how you think you're showing up and how you're actually showing up. Because when you see what you've been writing down that's missing in your life after you did that set of mindset push-ups, it's very rewarding.
That's awesome. I love that so much. Those aha moments, those, oh, this is working. Well, fun. So, speaking of showing up big and kind of this whole meant for more thing and being about something bigger, what is your next growth or evolution or the next more thing
The
that you
next
are
more
being
thing.
called to?
Yes. Okay, so a couple exciting things are happening on kind of the low key area, which is the Mindset Gym is coming online. So you will be able to self just so that more people can access those exercises at once, and it's not limited to trainer availability. So that's very exciting to have that coming online. Personally, the next area of kind of growth and development for me is, and this is going to sound like really shallow, right? When so I like going to the gym. I like going to work out, and there was a number that I never thought I would be able to lift like ever. And that number was 225 pounds on the bench press. And if anybody has ever even walked inside a gym, they know that 225 pounds is nothing. I mean, like high school kids can do that 20 times in a row. It's crazy. It's nothing. But for whatever reason, for me, this is like really embarrassing to say, that was a number that I didn't think I would ever be able to reach because I had struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled. And finally, a couple years ago, and I'm getting older. So I think I was like 45 or something like that at the time. I finally did it. And when you reach a goal, it's so anticlimactic. It's like, oh, well, that's just the logical next step. I mean, I was a little bit stronger last week, and that was just, it wasn't an achievement. It doesn't feel like an achievement. So it's kind of a letdown. But then a couple weeks later, I was, my brain went, wait a minute. what if I could do 315? That was a thought that my brain had never had. 315 was unthinkable for me. And this is really embarrassing for me to share with you guys. I feel like super vulnerable talking about the own workings of my own head and areas where my brain, my mindset, if you will, didn't even consider that it could be possible for me to be able to do that. Didn't even consider. So reached 225. And then a couple weeks later, my brain has the thought for the first time ever, what if I was able to do 315? And I did the math, and I am about 6 weeks away from being able to do 315, which
How does that feel?
It feels a little surreal. It's like in my head, it feels.
How does it feel in your heart?
In my heart, it feels kind of like a reddish, glowy, kind of a reddish, glowy, comforting, like loving kind of feeling sensation in my heart. Almost a feeling I would describe as loving yourself. Like, when you have grace for yourself and forgiveness for yourself and nurture and care and acceptance for yourself, that kind of thing is the feeling that shows up when I realize I'm just a few weeks away from this goal that a couple of years ago was unthinkable. And especially now, like I'm getting older. I'm 47. I'll be 48 in April. Part of my brain is going, am I aging faster than I'm improving? Like, will I even physically be able to continue to grow and improve at a rate that will allow me to hit that? So doing the math the other day and realized that I'm just a few weeks away. The feeling in my heart was loving myself, caring for and accepting myself. Yeah.
So you love yourself when things get heavier. Or in this instance.
Okay. Yeah. In this instance, technically it is getting heavier. But the love for myself is just the dedication of constantly showing up. I will be sick in bed all day, and I will drag myself out of bed, get on my bike, go ride for an hour, come back home, crawl back into bed. So the love for myself is, there's never a time that I don't, like, always showing up. That's part of it. The other love for myself is giving myself permission to acknowledge, oh my gosh, I'm about to do this thing that I didn't even think was capable of thinking of. And like, to be able to acknowledge that. Kind of sort of an aside here while we're talking about this. The reason telling your kids to just do their best is the absolute worst advice, is because in my bench press journey, there is no point in time that you did your best. It's not a target you can hit, because the closer you get to it, the more new knowledge you're aware of that exists, and the better you realize there is to go. So advising somebody to do their best,
the more you know you don't know.
the more you know you don't know. So it's a target that they can only miss. It's not a target they can ever hit, which is also why just do your best is terrible advice for somebody dealing with stage fright. It's only something they can fail at. They can never succeed at actually doing their best, because the more you know you don't know. So small aside, but sort of related to, golly, and I just feel like so embarrassed to be sharing these things, because I know many people listening, like their boyfriend did 315 when he was in, high
Wait,
school.
hold on. What did you just tell me at the beginning of this? Is that not, you can't compare your journey to someone else's.
You can. And that's what makes it
I'm giving
embarrassing
you
for me.
your own advice.
Yes,
All
that's why
right.
it's so embarrassing. I feel like
I
I'm
love
being
it.
real with you. I've never shared these things.
I love it. I have that effect on people, Jarrod. I have that effect.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being real, for opening up and sharing maybe those moments where it is a little vulnerable, but it is really great when you do share those things. And I felt like I was able to see more of you and of who you are and more of what you're meant for. Make sure you let people know where where they can find you, follow you, dive into your world, ask you questions, where can they get a hold of you, Jarrod?
Mindsetperformance.co. I would say, don't believe anything I have shared on this podcast. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself and see if you think it is relevant to the work you're doing and what life's calling you to. I'm also pretty active on Facebook, facebook.com/Haning, Haning. Pretty active there. Not as active on LinkedIn or Instagram, but mostly Facebook.
Awesome. Well, you guys make sure to go check out the website, go hang out with Jarrod on Facebook. We'll make sure to have all of the links and all that fun stuff in the show notes. Jarrod, thank you again for sharing your time, your expertise. It was fun to dive into what it looked like, not only in your brain, but in the gym of the mindset gym and the mindset push-ups. What you are doing in the world is so needed. And so I acknowledge you for trusting, like, to put the boulder down that you are pushing uphill and to pick up and follow what made you feel alive, because you are helping so many people do that. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope it brought some value and some fun into your business and life. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, and even share the episode with a fellow business bestie who you know will love it. It helps us continue to attract top-level guests and reach more and more women who are on their journey in business just like you. Remember that when money gets in the hands of good women, great things happen. Cheers to your success.